Hello, in this session we will talk about what is MVC. This is Hassan Mir from 02protraining.com. So first thing first, MVC stands for Model View Controller, and it is a software design pattern or a software development methodology. So the main objective of Model View Control design is to promote code usability and also to implement separation of concerns. What exactly do we mean by implementation of separation of concerns? We will discuss that in coming slides. So the MVC model calls for the division of a software or application into three main components: model, view, and controller. So the model component contains the brains of the application. What is this software supposed to do? What is the logic? So the whole software logic goes in this component, consisting of business rules as well as applications data. The view component is the presentation layer. It has all the information on what to display on the screen, what would be the colors, what would be the layout, and how many fields, and so on. So the view component is basically the presentation layer. Model component is the brains of the software. The controller component's job is to handle communication between users and the model. Users will be interacting using the interface that is produced by the view component, and whenever they interact, the communication will be handled by the controller. So the controller will receive the interaction and it will send the interaction to the model, which will perform certain tasks based on the business logic and will give the data back to the controller, which will then display the data to the screen using one of the views that exist in the software. So we talked about the main objective of MVC model is to create separation of concerns, and in other words, we want to separate the user interface with the business logic, with the software logic. So if you ever want to change the interface, you do not have to touch the software logic. If you ever want to change the software logic, you do not have to touch the user interface. So we are separating the two components. So this is the main benefit you get out of the MVC model. So here is an example. So we have 5 players here: users, the database, and the 3 components of the software. Usually the data resides outside the software, so that's why I have shown that as a database, a separate component here. So let's say user is seeing something on the screen, a presentation view from the software, and user presses some button. So controller is going to take over the communication and it's going to translate that button into some kind of an action. And let's say this button is all about to query some data from the database. So the controller is going to pass that information to the model. Model will do the query in the database. Database will return the results back to the model. Model is going to return the results back to the controller. Now controller will decide which of the views to use to display the information back to the user, and using this view the information will be presented back to the user. So the colors, the layout, and the whole presentation is contained within the view, and what data to display using that presentation layer has been returned by the database to the model, and that data will be displayed on that screen to the user. So we have separated the view from the not only the data but also the business logic. The MVC concept is not new. It was presented in 1970s by programmers of Smalltalk, which is an object-oriented language, and it was implemented in the later version Smalltalk 80 in 1980s. And in 1988 it was presented as a general concept which could be implemented in other programming languages as well. So it is a common and almost a standard model which is used in all the languages, not only on World Wide Web but also on languages that create desktop applications. So PHP, Java, ASP, and other languages use MVC model.